We created a 3-part color grading bootcamp sharing how we color grade our YouTube videos. This is part 3 where Jack goes over how he creates his signature look for YouTube videos in Davinci Resolve. In part 1, he went over the project settings, and in part 2, he went over the basic color grading, so just make sure to check those out before moving forward with this video, or else you might be a little confused. This video is not a how to use Davinci or a beginner's tutorial. It's more for someone that's interested in seeing what effects and LUT we use to create our YouTube videos. And just a note, we are coloring a clip from our Sony a7S III shot in S-Log3 and a clip from our DJI Osmo Pocket 3 shot in D-Log-N. Okay, now get ready because Jack will explain everything.
So in part 2, I shared how I adjust the basic exposure, contrast, and saturation. Now in part 3, I want to share how I add a few more effects as well as a built-in film LUT to create our signature look. Previously, we worked on these 0 nodes here for our initial color correction: CST in, exposure, contrast, saturation, and CST out. But now I'm going to add a few more 0 nodes after initial color correction. These are the effects I typically use to create our signature look: halation, Gaussian blur, film LUT, and film grain. Let's add each of the effects in one by one, and I'll show you what it does. So what I like to do is add the halation as well as the Gaussian blur before the color space transform out. So I'm going to put this aside, add a couple more 0 nodes, and then I'm going to add a film grain, and then I'm going to add a film LUT as well as the film grain. Okay, so here we're going to look up halation, drag that over. And what halation does is, let me zoom this in. What halation does is adds this glow around the highlight of the image. Obviously this is a little strong, so we want to dial back a bit and leave it at that for now. And then the second one we want to add is a Gaussian blur, and it's right here. So I'm just gonna add that in, and obviously this is too much, so we're gonna dial that back to about there. You can play with these to see what you like. And then the third one is the film LUT. To use the built-in LUT with Davinci Resolve, what you have to do is to use the color space transform again and before applying the film LUT. Let me drag this over to make a little bit more space. So I'm going to apply another color space transform. So if you remember, this was our color space transform out from, this was the in and this was the out, to convert to 709 2.4. So this time we want to use the input color space as Rec 709, input gamma as 2.4. Output color space will still be 709. However, the output gamma, we want to set that to cine film log. So obviously with this effect applied, it looks horrible. So here is when we add the film LUT. So this is the built-in film LUT from Davinci Resolve, and you just right click on the node, look for LUT, film look. And the Kodak 2383 is the one I normally use, and that's with the LUT on, so it gives a more punchier look to it. And then the last thing we want to do is the film grain. And here we go. And you can play with the settings to see what type of film grain you like. I'm just gonna pick one that I like. So it adds this subtle grain to it. Off, on, off, on. All right. So this is a good time to pause and tell you why we don't offer or give a LUT. Each effect builds on the previous one, meaning each node will affect the node before. So order is important, and if we offer a LUT, all the nodes are essentially squished into one node. So here is a visual that I can give you. So let's say I compound all the nodes together into one. So this is what a simulated LUT would look like. So if we give you this, and let's say this shot is too dark or too contrasty, and if you want to, let's say, bring up the exposure, so take a look at, I'm gonna bring up the waveform. If you took a look at the waveform, if I'm bringing up the exposure, everything gets brought up together. There's not a lot of latitude in the waveform, so everything is brought up with whatever that is applied to this LUT. The film grain is affected, the exposure, the basic color correction that we did was also affected, as well as the halation and the Gaussian blur. All those are brought up afterwards instead of being in separate layers. So instead of this, let's reset that. Let's go back to this. And so if you remember, this was our exposure layer. So let's say I'm bringing the exposure up from this layer. You can tell that it keeps the contrast where it is, but while bringing up the exposure. Obviously this shot has too much contrast and I can adjust it down a bit to compensate for it, but you have a lot more room to adjust the shot while maintaining a higher quality. Now that we have the LUT and the effects in, we're able to get a general idea of the look we're building. From this point, I would fine-tune each node. So just go into each node from exposure, contrast, saturation, and the effects and tweak it to your liking. This is dependent on the shot and your personal preference, so I'll speed through it and show you the final results. Okay, here's how I fine-tuned everything. This is with the exposure, contrast, saturation, halation, blur, and the film LUT, and the film grain. Okay, so now let's work on the DJI clip. So we have our basic color correction as well as the DJI Osmo Pocket conversion LUT to the Rec 709. So same thing. I'm not going to dial it in perfectly because you can play with the settings to decide what you think looks nicest. Yeah, so I just kind of sped through all that. So this is the halation, the Gaussian blur, and this is the color space transform for the LUT to properly use with the LUT. And then this is the film grain. The conversion LUT from DJI, exposure adjustment, contrast and saturation. I didn't do contrast on this one, just saturation. The halation, the blur, and the LUT, and the film grain. I purchased many LUTs back in the day. It rarely works on the first try because LUTs are designed with a specific shooting scenario. For example, this look that I've created, all these adjustments will not look perfect on another shot. There is no shortcut, however. With that said, I do want to show my workflow to speed up the color grading with a power grade. A power grade is a set of nodes like this that you create, and you'll be able to apply this to all of your projects. So once I got my node tree template down, I just have to right click and grab a still. So what that does is it saves the still in the stills folder. Inside the stills folder, you can only see this on the same project. What we want to do is make this into a power grade. So you can right click, add a power grade album, and then drag the still into this power grade. So now whenever and you can obviously rename this too, and whenever you want to access your power grades that you've created to use on other projects, all you have to do is apply it. So let me reset this, reset all grades. So this is, minimize this. So all you have to do is right click to applied grade, and then all of your nodes are there again. That's basically how we create our final look. Here's the final results.
And that concludes our color grading bootcamp. I hope Jack was able to lay it all down for you guys. I know color grading is so intimidating. It's kind of funny because Jack and I used to both color and edit, but then as we worked more and more together, we kind of realized that I'm a fast and efficient editor and he is a much better colorist than I am. So we kind of divided the task. So I do all of the editing and he does all of the color grading. So I actually learn a lot just making these color grading tutorials as well. video. But I do also plan on making an editing tutorial for you guys. So if you have any specific questions about how I edit my YouTube videos, just comment below using the laptop emoji maybe, and I'll try to get those questions answered in that video. Okay, I think that's it. I hope this was helpful, I really do. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!